Origin channel, Somusuji reacts, and this is why isn't Hiroshima a nuclear wasteland? My channel, Kyle Hill. I think I've seen a one or two video or reacted to one or two video from this channel. This channel is like decent, really good for content like this. I think it was about Chernobyl, right? I'm pretty sure it was Chernobyl video. So this is another one, I guess, specializing in nuclear thing. I don't know. So why isn't Hiroshima a nuclear wasteland? As far as I know, right? I mean, I'm scientifically literate, I guess. I know basic stuff, but I don't know when it comes to nukes. Like I said, I have basic knowledge, but I think this bomb was like detonated much higher in the altitude. That's what the bomb was, right? That's how this bomb worked, and a lot of nukes were kind of like that. So because it was bomb such a high altitude, it never reached radiation. I don't think most of the radiation reached the ground level. So it was like uh, you know it was irradiated, but not for that long. I'm pretty sure it was just like few months or even just like barely a year or two before it was like mostly gone. So I guess that's the reason. There are different type of nukes, and this nuke was like detonated in the atmosphere, and most nukes work like that. There are nukes basically that can detonate very low, but I don't know, the yield is better this way, I guess. I don't know. So I think that's the case. I don't know if there's more nuanced and more detail behind that, but we'll see, I guess. So let's wait for. Remember, people, if you like my reaction, don't forget to subscribe. So I know which type of videos to react to more. Check out the reaction. There's a link in the description. Check out the end cards, and yeah, let's watch it.
In the waning days of World War II, the United States government decided to conclusively and decisively end the war with Japan with a hitherto unbelievably powerful weapon, the atomic bomb. In the August of 1945, a 15-kiloton nuclear warhead was dropped on the Japanese city of Hiroshima, where I'm standing
What is this, Fallout
right now.
game? Damn.
Hiroshima remains one of the only two locations on Earth where people witnessed firsthand the awesome and terrible power of an atom split for offensive purposes. But unlike other cities that have had brushes with nuclear disasters like Pripyat in Ukraine and Fukushima here in Japan, Hiroshima is not abandoned. Far from it. As you can see, the city is flourishing.
And also, I think like the difference here is that with the nuclear plant, I guess the process is less volatile, right? So I won't say it's stable, because I don't think we've like come to any technology that will give you like stable nuclear reaction. But I think it was like not as volatile as a is that the right word, volatile, not as chaotic as the bomb, right? uh Sun basically goes through a stable nuclear fusion. I don't think we can do that right now. Whatever we can do is just basically unstable. That's why we need rods and things to stabilize it. And I think plants are not that stable, but stabler than bombs, I guess. So because of that, radiation, when it goes out of hand, radiation would be like too much. With the bombs, it's just like immediate, right? And obviously that would also leave things irradiated. But like I said, like I'm pretty sure it was detonated much higher, above the ground. So that also played part in it. So with the plants, of course, it's going to be really problematic.
Why? The answer has as much to do with history as it does physics. This is the true story of how Hiroshima survived the atomic bomb.
Let's go. This is the 19th video in the series. Whoa! That's on how is he making his series. I'm pretty sure I saw the Chernobyl one.
Millions
I think
of
I saw
mostly
two.
young men had already died in the meat grinders of World War II's battlefronts when, in 1945, the United States
look at these
decided that a
barges,
few
man,
hundred
damn.
thousand more lives would be the final nail in so many coffins. To avoid a ground invasion of Japan, something the Japanese people had already proven would be a tooth-and-nail battle for every square inch of island, then President Harry S. Truman made the impossible decision to, in what would last only milliseconds, forever separate history into two eras: the time before atomic weapons and the time after.
Yeah.
Just three
Look, man, I don't pause too much, but this also brings up, I like how he presented this part, Kyle Hill basically. You really need to like meet Grinder the way he said it, the way he showed the barges. You really need to process like how fucked up World War II was, how many people were dying left and right. This was such a long war, and so many people died all during all those times. I'm pretty sure there was a moment where people just expected death, like, oh, this is like everyday event. No part of humanity should be like that. So this was such a fucked up event. You can understand when they decided like, okay, this will kill a lot of people in the city, but after all this shit, you can understand where they will be like, okay, we need to stop this, because it wasn't just about Japan. It's about everybody around the globe. Like, just to basically give an example, a statement like this is what we can do, so everybody can just basically stop. And after knowing like how fucked up World War II was, I'm pretty sure they didn't thought even twice when it comes to this, because by that point it was already fucked up. Like 80 to 100 million probably died before they decided to do this, which is like fucked up, really fucked up.
3 weeks after the first successful nuclear detonation, the Trinity test, US scientists had decided that Hiroshima, Japan, was a city suitable for the shock to leadership that was needed to finally knock an already reeling Japan out of the war. The city was an army depot at the time, surrounded by hills that would provide a focusing effect for what was the most funded and secretive government project in US history. There would be no leaflets dropped this time, no demonstration bomb, no warning shot. The strike was ordered. The bombs that would be dropped? Special. On August 6, 1945, the B-29 bomber, the Enola Gay, had made its top-secret trip across the Pacific Ocean and was approaching Hiroshima from 10 kilometers above. 17 seconds past 8:15 a.m., the bomb, designated Little Boy, drops silently into clear sky.
Man, imagine that, right? Like even the soldiers go through this like issue when they have to shoot somebody. Like they are trained for this. They know this is our duty, but even then, like they go through a stage where like, holy shit, I just basically this was my first person that I shot or something or whatever. And this happens to everyone. Doesn't matter if it's like your decision or your basically job, like somebody told you to. Imagine the pilot who flew this. Like I don't know, like obviously he's going to be some kind of a veteran pilot, but this is not a gun, this is not some small bomb. He knows like the level of destruction this would bring, the level of people instantly will die because of it. Imagine his mentality, like I'm pushing the button to do this, regardless of what, regardless of who's giving order, this is me doing it. Like what, like I don't know, you need to have ice in your veins, right? You need to be somebody just like you, like I know what I'm doing, I have to do this, like properly stable man. I'm not that, right? I don't know how I would be after this, knowing that I'm in basically right side of the history. This was needed to end things, needed to end to war or whatever, but I still would be not okay after this.
For almost a minute, nothing happened. The airmen in the Enola Gay feared their mission was a dud. But 44.4 seconds after release, the bomber's cabin filled with a blinding white light.
Oh my god.
A fireball with the same surface temperature as the sun had expanded to wider
More.
than the Eiffel Tower is.
Oh, did he say sun or surface of the sun? Because I'm pretty sure it's like more than the surface of the sun, right? It's like, damn, it's really hot.
Tall in less than a second, 580 meters above the Shima Surgical Clinic, far below them. The intended target was this bridge, approximately 240 meters away from the hospital, but given the apocalypse that followed, the miss didn't matter.
Damn, man. This is like from a video game type of shit. This is
The
insane.
Enola Gay was already 16 kilometers away when it was rattled by shockwaves. It reportedly felt like being under heavy fire. The crew, most of whom didn't know exactly what they were dropping, was reportedly speechless.
What?
It's now something of a legend that Enola's co-pilot Captain Robert A. Lewis broke the silence with, "My God, what have we done?"
Damn.
But co-pilot Colonel Paul W. Tippett remembers it differently. "Fellows," Tippett announced over the intercom, "you have just dropped the first atomic bomb in history."
I think that's more accurate.
A short time ago,
Look, I understand even if they didn't know, they won't process it that fast, right? So they won't be like, my God, what we've done. It's just like, okay, it was some kind of a bomb. Maybe it was too big of a bomb, right? I'm pretty sure it's that, the first would be like, they would know that. I don't think they would just keep them that much of a blind. They would have some, some knowledge of it. This is like atomic bomb. Like, okay, what is the devastation? None of your business. Classified. But they would know this is something, at least.
an American airplane dropped one bomb on Hiroshima and destroyed its usefulness to the enemy. That bomb has more power than 20,000 tons of TNT. The Japanese began the war from the air at Pearl Harbor. They have been repaid many-fold, and the end is not yet. With this bomb, we have now added a new and revolutionary increase in destruction.
20,000. And Zara bomb is what, 50 million TNT? Like, imagine the difference. How much of it basically thermonuclear bomb is and this.
Numbers on the number of people that died as the result of the Hiroshima bombing have been revised and revised again for decades. It's hard to get accurate body counts when thousands of bodies were literally turned into vapor.
Yeah.
But it's generally estimated
Molecularly
that
disintegrated.
in less time than it took the Enola Gay to fly to Japan and back, some 70 to 80,000 people had died, 30% of Hiroshima's population. 70% of the buildings were rubble, or char, or both. The total number of deaths would increase over the next 20 to 30 days to between 90 and 140,000 people, as the 70,000 injured succumbed to bodily damage exacerbated by acute radiation syndrome. Unsurprisingly, the few doctors that were left, 80% had died in the blast, had no idea what acute radiation syndrome was. It had never happened before, and therefore they could not effectively treat it. This crisis was compounded by the fact that the average radiation dose that would kill approximately 50% of adults, the LD50, was halved for the initial survivors, as radiation injuries stress the same immunological systems that are stretched thin by extensive blast injuries and deep body burns.
What the fuck?
What you're seeing now are the images that I can safely show on this platform, and in curating them, I may be giving you a false sense of the damage. To be clear, the full reality is much, much worse than what you are seeing here.
Yeah, YouTube can't allow that one.
If you
apparently.
do seek out images of the aftermath, of the bodies featureless after being
I would
flashed
rather not.
black with otherworldly heat, they will shock you, as they arguably should.
I'm fine, man. I'm not watching that.
Electronics and over
That was
5,000
panic
products
state.
delivered in 10 minutes. Blinkit, India's last minute app.
For all the destruction it caused, the little boy bomb was terribly inefficient. Of the bomb's 64 kilograms of uranium, less than 1 kilogram underwent fission. This figure made what happened even more terrifying.
Yeah.
Every joule of energy that devastated Hiroshima, a fireball so hot it etched negatives of people
Look
into
at that
concrete,
shit.
a
Look at
blast
that
wave
shit.
so intense it shattered windows 200 kilometers away, came from less than a gram of matter converted directly into energy.
Yeah.
An entire city obliterated by the weight of a butterfly. Today,
That makes me think like how much energy is in every small thing. Like that small amount devastated that much thing just by splitting it. Like it's every time you think that and just see things around you, you can just feel like how much proper energy is like stored in these things. Like splitting of that would be way too, like imagine all the things that are on the surface on the earth, everything, if all of them split, right? All of them, like atoms split and things like that, like how much titanic energy would that be?
these nuclear weapons are thousands of times more powerful. There are 4 ways to offensively detonate a nuclear bomb. What distinguishes them is altitude. Above 100,000 feet, a nuclear detonation is considered a high-altitude burst, which produces a much larger fireball and more electromagnetic effects owing to the lack of a dense atmosphere. Below 100,000 feet is an airburst, where thermal energy and blast makes it to the ground. A surface burst fireball touches the ground, and a subsurface burst explodes underground or underwater.
Yeah, so
Each type of burst has its own tactical considerations. A high-altitude burst might take out enemy communications. An airburst blast wave rebounds off the ground and deals major thermal and blast damage to exposed enemy forces and structures. Surface and subsurface bursts create the most amount of fallout and can destroy hard and/or buried targets.
I think surface one would have more fallout than subsurface one. Subsurface, I think it creates some kind of like earthquake type of effect that has much more devastation to things, right, for way long distance.
The burst that leveled Hiroshima in 1945 began half a kilometer above the city. The reflected blast wave and thermal radiation was more than enough to create the shock to leadership the American government wanted. Crucially, however, the fireball did not touch the ground. It was an airburst, so there was not a vast amount of dirt and vaporized debris for radioactive particles and fission products to attach to and fall out of the sky with as they got heavier. By the time the fission products in the cloud at Hiroshima got cool enough to fall out, they had already decayed enough and become diffuse enough to pose no long-term radiological danger to downwind populations.
Yeah.
The radiation damage done to Hiroshima's residents occurred over around 60 seconds, and the majority of the residual radiation from the bomb was emitted in 24 hours.
Yeah.
It
That's
follows
way too
from the
short time,
physics
and then I
then,
would have thought.
that Hiroshima and Nagasaki, another airburst, would experience few, if any, long-term health effects from nuclear fallout, despite anecdotal evidence to the contrary. And indeed, this is what the majority of studies and summaries of studies point towards. And Hiroshima today has a population well over 1 million people.
Look at that.
A habitable Hiroshima is contrasted with a place like Pripyat. Here, in 1986, a nuclear reactor exploded and then burned for days, which dispersed actual pieces of nuclear fuel.
First color image or something. Look at that. Because every image you see of this is some black and white and some shit like that. Oh my god, just this is like different. Okay, seriously, like it can only be in Japan, right? Like people can just go back there, build a city, and there you go. Any other country, just like even scientists tell you like everything's fine, people are not going to believe it. The Japanese is the Japanese are the kind of people who, like, if the train is late for a minute or two, they'll basically give you a free seat or something. So they would go. Like most people are like, nah, I'm not going to that city. Yeah, but it's everything's fine. Nah, I don't care. I'm not going to that city.
And longer-lived fission products across a large area. There was
That's
no nuclear
scary shit, look at that.
detonation. Chernobyl was effectively a dirty bomb, not a nuclear one. As a result, Pripyat will remain abandoned for decades, though
Much longer.
spending time there isn't as dangerous as you might think. Today, stand in Hiroshima at ground zero with a Geiger counter, and you won't record anything above normal background radiation. Far from a nuclear wasteland, you'll find a thriving tourist destination, a carefully curated and cared for park dedicated to that day, where foreign
See, this is what I liked about the game Fallout, especially Fallout 4. They had the glowing sea element, which is like big ass crater, implying there was like subsurface bomb. So it would make sense that it would have this kind of a fucking Fallout. That was a good touch.
foreigners and buses of local schoolchildren can learn about what happened some 80 years prior. Hiroshima today is a
Kyle is going, hey, I'm the American who bombed you, hey.
bustling, beautiful city, scarred but healed.
Yeah.
Today, Hiroshima, Japan has undoubtedly risen from the ashes, a consequence of both how offensive nuclear weapons are used and where. 80 years on, this city is a living, breathing monument to both why we need to get rid of our nuclear weapons and, in the face of nuclear weapons, how the human spirit can endure and survive.
Yep.
Until next time.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. I've said many times, like, nuclear weapons are the deterrent. It makes sense why you should have nuclear weapons. But with the recent conflicts, like wars are happening, the war are increasing. Okay, Ukraine one, fine. Now the current one that going in the Middle East. Okay, if the more rise, like even now China go after Taiwan, shit like that. At that point, like just give up nuclear weapons because it's really not working. It's not a deterrent anymore, is it? It worked for long enough, but now it's not working. So then you should definitely get rid of nukes because there's no point. this thing about, is there any slogan that's just saying never forget? Because then Americans should be panicking there, like, okay, they're smiling, right? They're like friends of USA, but how long? Okay, old Japanese blood is rising up, never forget. That would be insane. I don't think that's the case, but still. All right, that's so good, right? Seeing the city how thriving. You wouldn't think that like this was just it's not even been a century. It's been like what 60 70 years, right? How many years? 70 75 years, whatever, right? Something like that. 70 80 years. It's close to 80 years. It's been that long, right? And they're just still thriving. Look at the city how it was, which is like great. Whatever this was, why isn't Hiroshima a nuclear wasteland? Like I said, it was on the surface bomb. Makes sense. This was channel Kai Hill. If you like my reaction, don't forget to like, subscribe, and I'll see you next time.